All right, let's talk about what is honestly one of the most dramatic father-son situations playing out on the world stage right now. And I promise you, by the end of this video, your jaw is going to drop at just how final this whole thing is starting to feel. So here's where we are. According to multiple credible reports and palace insiders, King Charles III has reportedly made something absolutely crystal clear to Prince Harry. And the message, sources claim, could not be more blunt. There is no coming back, not halfway, not part-time, not on weekends, not even with a royal badge that just says visitor. Now, before we get into the full picture here, let me just say up front, this is not officially confirmed by the palace, and we are working with what sources and reports are telling us. So keep that in mind as we go through all of this together, because trust me, the details only get more interesting from here. Let's rewind just a little bit so we're all on the same page, because context is everything here. Back in 2020, Harry and his wife Meghan stepped down from their roles as senior working royals, relocated to California, and basically started living their best non-royal life in Montecito with their two kids, Archie and Lilibet. Now for a few years, the palace kept things relatively quiet, but then the legal battles started, the tell-all interviews happened, the documentaries dropped, and suddenly the relationship between Harry and the rest of the royal family, including his own father, hit what can only be described as rock bottom. And I say that with no drama added because the drama was already baked in. Then, just when people started thinking maybe, just maybe, things were cooling down, something interesting happened. And this is the part I want you to pay close attention to. In September 2025, Prince Harry flew back to the UK for a charity visit, and during that trip, he reportedly sat down with King Charles at Clarence House for a private tea. A private tea, which, depending on where you're from, is either a sweet family moment or the most British way possible to have a very serious conversation. Sources describe the meeting as lasting around 55 minutes, and according to reports, the atmosphere was described as warm. Now here's where things get tricky and where I think a lot of people got ahead of themselves. Because the moment that meeting was reported, social media lit up with headlines about Harry's royal return, about reconciliation, about the prodigal prince coming home. And look, I get it. We all want a happy ending. But according to palace insiders, what those headlines got very, very wrong was the actual outcome of that meeting. According to sources cited by the Times of London, King Charles reportedly made his position absolutely clear to Harry, and the message sources claim was this: there is no half-in, half-out arrangement available. That phrase, half-in, half-out, is not mine, by the way. It is reportedly a direct reference to the standard that the late Queen Elizabeth herself had established, and one that King Charles is said to be fully committed to upholding. A royal source reportedly told the Times, quote, "The king has been absolutely clear in upholding his late mother's decision that there can be no half-in, half-out public role for members of the family, and that, if sources are to be believed, is the final word from the top." Now, here is where my own brain starts asking questions, and I think yours should too. If the meeting was warm, if the vibe was good, then why is the palace reportedly putting out such a hard-line position publicly? Well, one insider reportedly offered an answer, and it is actually pretty revealing. According to reports, palace insiders expressed serious concerns about leaks. Specifically, sources allegedly suggested that King Charles has been increasingly careful about what he says privately to Harry precisely because of fears that those conversations could end up in the press, or worse, become part of a future interview or project. And honestly, from a purely strategic standpoint, you can understand the logic there, even if it is a painful reality for a father-son relationship. Royal expert Hilary Fordwich reportedly told Fox News Digital, and I am paraphrasing here, that Harry is not trusted by the royal family at this point, and that emotional distractions are not something King Charles can afford right now, especially given the high-stakes diplomatic engagements he has been focused on, including a significant state visit to the United States. Now that is a pretty serious statement from a royal expert, and it is worth letting that land for a second. Here is the part that I personally find the most fascinating about all of this, and this is where I want to give you my honest take. There is a version of this story where Harry is the villain and a version where he is misunderstood, and honestly, the truth probably sits somewhere in between. What is undeniable, based on all these reports, is that the communication breakdown between Harry and his father has reached a point where even a warm 55-minute tea cannot apparently cut through years of legal battles, public statements, and deeply hurt feelings. Harry himself reportedly told the BBC after losing his legal case over security arrangements, quote, "He won't speak to me because of this security stuff." And he went on to say, quote, "I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore." That is not the statement of someone who does not care. That actually sounds like someone who is exhausted and heartbroken if these reports are accurate. And here is the layer on top of all of that. According to royal expert Hugo Vickers, even if Harry wanted to return to royal duties, the nature of who he has become as a public figure would make it nearly impossible to function alongside the monarchy. Vickers reportedly stated that Harry attracts too much controversy, and that his return as even a part-time working royal would contradict everything King Charles and the rest of the family are doing. And when you think about it practically, that is not an unreasonable position for the palace to take. The brand of the monarchy, for better or worse, depends on a certain kind of controlled, unified image. Harry and Meghan, whether fairly or unfairly, have become something very different from that. They have built an identity outside the institution, and sources say the institution has no interest in allowing that identity back through the front door on a part-time basis. Now, there are also reports circulating that suggest Harry was allegedly hoping King Charles might visit him at his Montecito home during a planned royal trip to America. According to multiple outlets, Charles is reportedly scheduled to visit the United States for diplomatic purposes, and Harry's team is said to have been, sources claim, quietly hopeful that a visit to California might be on the cards. However, royal insiders have reportedly poured significant cold water on that idea, with experts suggesting that a private visit to Harry's home would be logistically complicated, and more importantly, would likely generate the exact kind of media attention the palace wants to avoid. So if you are hopping for a dramatic scene where Charles knocks on Harry's Montecito door with a bouquet and an apology note, it sounds like, based on current reports, that is probably not happening. Meanwhile, it is worth noting that Prince William, Harry's older brother, has reportedly taken an even firmer stance than his father. According to royal author Valentine Lowe, who spoke on GB News, William is, quote, "very aware of what he regards as mistakes his father has made and has no intention of repeating them," which I think translates pretty clearly to, William is not leaving any doors open, at all. And notably, William was not present at the Clarence House tea meeting, which sources say was not accidental. So here is where we land with all of this, and I think this is the question that really matters. Is this a permanent, irreversible situation, or is there still a path towards some kind of private family relationship, even if a royal return is completely off the table? Based on what sources are saying, the answer to the royal return question is a hard no, and that seems extremely unlikely to change. But on the personal, family relationship side, insiders have reportedly said that private meetings could continue. Harry's spokesperson has also indicated that his focus, quote, has to be on his dad, suggesting there is still at least some desire to maintain a connection as father and son, separate from titles and duties. And look, at the end of the day, whatever side of this you are on, whatever you think about how this whole saga has unfolded, the image of a son saying publicly, "I don't know how much longer my father has," is a hard thing to sit with. Because stripped of all the royal protocol and the palace statements and the expert commentary, this is still, at its core, a family that is struggling to find each other again. According to sources and reports, the doors to a royal role appear to have been firmly shut, But whether the door to a simple father-son relationship remains open, well, that part of the story, sources suggest, is still being written. And if there is one thing this royal saga has proven beyond any doubt, it is that you should never, ever assume the next chapter is going to go the way you expect it to. If you have made it this far, drop a comment down below telling me what you think. Do you believe a full reconciliation between King Charles and Prince Harry is still possible? Because I am genuinely curious where you all stand on this one.